Hey everybody, Christopher Ryan here. Today we're going to be looking at 7 tips to help prepare you for your first tour on the road. Thanks so much for tuning back into the channel. Today we're going to be talking about 7 tips to help prepare you for your first time on the road. So tip number 1 is simply to book a realistic tour schedule. I know it can be really exciting to get out on the road for the very first time, and you may be anxious to see different parts of the country and play for new audiences in new cities. But it's really important as you plan your tour schedule to make sure that you've got a realistic schedule set out in front of you. It's not going to be realistic to be driving for 10 or 12 hours every single day and to play gigs in the evenings. You're better off playing smaller markets that are closer together or taking days off in between shows when needed. Alright, the second tip is to make sure that you don't mark your car or your trailer or your van or your bus in any way that lets people know that it's filled with thousands of dollars worth of expensive music gear. I know you may be excited to be out on the road and wanting to advertise that you are in town, but putting a big logo across the side of your van or your trailer is not a good idea. It's a great way to get your gear stolen. Tip number 3 is also about securing your gear. In the evenings when it's time to go to sleep, if you have expensive gear, try to bring some of that into the hotel room with you. Maybe it's a fancy guitar or a really nice vocal microphone. For the gear that has to stay outside, if it's in a car or a van, make sure it's out of sight. If it's in a trailer, make sure that trailer has a great lock, and whenever possible, back that trailer up to a building so that its doors can't be opened. Tip number 4 is to make sure that you've planned ahead so that you can eat well. Eating food out on the road can be very expensive, and it's really easy to start feeling lethargic after a few days of high-fat, fast food. It's pretty easy to plan ahead, and if you think about it a little, there's probably plenty of shelf-stable foods that you can eat on the go in a car or a van that are also fairly healthy for you, and it'll save you a lot of money. Tip number 5 is to bring spares of all of your essential gear. Now, these don't have to be really expensive spares, but you don't want to wind up in a situation where something breaks or malfunctions and all of a sudden you can't play a show. So if you play a really expensive guitar and something happens on stage, like it gets knocked over and the headstock breaks, you need to have a backup that's ready to go. So ideally, you'll keep a spare, inexpensive guitar in the van. Now, the other great advantage of this is sometimes you show up to gigs and things aren't exactly what you hoped for. Maybe you're expecting to play some fancy outdoor music festival and you get there and you find out that it's raining and they've got you under a leaky tent. It's way better to pull out that $200 guitar that you bought used at Craigslist than to risk your really good gear. Tip number 6 is to know how to play stripped-down versions of every one of your songs. You might run into a variety of scenarios where you need to suddenly do an acoustic version, or the stage simply isn't big enough to accommodate your amps and your huge drum set. It's great for your drummer to know how to play all of his parts on a hand drum, using a shaker, using a tambourine. It's great for your guitarist to be able to play something on an acoustic guitar instead of having to have a full stack and a pedal board. Tip number 7 is to have everything in writing. When you're out on the road, you're going to be dealing with dozens of different venues and dozens of different venue managers. It's really important to have things in writing so that when you show up at a gig, you can talk with the venue manager and make sure you're all on the same page about what you're getting paid, how long you're performing, and what time your set's going to end. So those are my 7 tips for preparing for your first tour on the road. I hope these were helpful. If I missed anything, feel free to write something down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like or a subscribe. And until next time, dream your life and live your dream.